Hello, this is Aunt Becky's story time and activities for her great nieces and nephews. I am going to be reading stories that my kids loved. The lighting is bad. I'm going to be reading stories that my kids loved, and today we will be reading Mr. Bear's House. Hopefully all the stories that I read are out of print. And if I mention books that are in print, it's going to be so that they can be found online or in the library or in a bookstore. So, out of print book number 1, Mr. Bear's House. And let me quick turn on a light. I'm not sure if that helped at all. Mr. Bear's House, Mr. Bear's House by Fenella Roth, illustrated by Clark McKinley. The book was printed, by Rand McNally, and was printed in Chicago, and it doesn't have a date. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a bear who lived in a cave in the woods. He was a fat brown bear, and he liked to go walking. One day, he walked to the edge of town. He heard a great hammering noise, and peeking out between the leaves of the bushes, he saw a carpenter building. See the carpenter in the picture? A house. The carpenter was building a house. Mr. Bear was fascinated. Every day he came back to watch. He saw the carpenter hammer the nails. He saw the house grow. Walls, roof, windows, and a porch. How much prettier than my cave, Mr. Bear said to himself. I want a house to live in. So, Mr. Bear went about the forest collecting pieces of wood until he had a big stack. Now, he thought, I need a hammer. And so he made a hammer out of a rock and a stick. Now, he said, I need some nails. This book is very old and falling apart. So he walked to the edge of town and looked around the new house. It was late in the day and the carpenter had gone home. Sure enough, there were some nails lying about on the ground. Mr. Bear picked them up and carried them back to the woods. Before I read on, I want to say that if you go to somebody's house, you really shouldn't pick things up around their house. But Mr. Bear was just a bear, and he didn't know about people rules like that. So I guess we'll just have to understand that. It's also dangerous to go around construction sites because there can be dangers that can hurt you, like Mr. Bear doesn't have any shoes on, but he's walking around where there's nails. When we had a roof put on our house and nails fell to the ground, the roofers, when they were all done with the job, knew that there were nails in our grass and didn't want it to go on our feet. So they had a giant magnet and rolled it around to collect up all the nails. But this was old-fashioned days, and this is just a story and just pretend. So in our story, Mr. Bear is collecting the nails from a job site, from where the carpenter was building a house. Now, Mr. Bear was really busy. He hammered and hammered and hammered, one nail after another. And the animals in the forest heard the banging noise and came to see what was happening. Whatever are you doing? Chirped the robins. I'm building a house, said Mr. Bear. With wood and such noise, the birds shook their heads. We use grasses. We don't make any noise at all. But I'm too big for a nest, said Mr. Bear. The beavers from the pond came over next. Whatever are you doing? They asked. I'm building a house, explained Mr. Bear. "We use mud, not nails, to hold our house together," said the beavers. "Mud wouldn't be strong enough for my house," Mr. Bear told them. "But," noticed one old beaver, "the wind will blow through the cracks in your house." Mr. Bear stopped work and surveyed his walls. Yes, there were cracks between the logs, and he could see the daylight shining through. He shook his head sadly. "Let's all help Mr. Bear," the old beaver suggested. "We beavers will put mud in the cracks." "Oh, thank you," Mr. Bear smiled happily, and the beavers hurried to the pond to fetch some mud. They put the mud into the cracks and smoothed it with their broad tails until no more daylight came shining through. Finally, the 4 walls of the house were built, with spaces for windows and a door. "The rain can come in," said the rabbits who had come to watch. "We don't have rain in our houses." "I need a roof," Mr. Bear explained to them. But he himself was puzzled. How could he ever put a roof over his 4 walls? "We will help you," sang the birds. "We will make your roof." "How?" asked Mr. Bear. "We will weave a roof with long grasses, a thatched roof." Mr. Bear smiled his thanks. It took a long time for the birds to make the big thatched roof that Mr. Bear needed. While they gathered the grass and wove it together, Mr. Bear was busy putting in his floor. Hammer, hammer, bang, bang, bang. The noise echoed through the woods. As Mr. Bear put the last nail into his floor, a blue jay flew over his head. "The roof is finished and ready to put on," he called. In a minute, hundreds of birds came flying and fluttering through the air. Through the woods, they carried the new roof in their beaks. The blue jay waited until it was exactly over top of the 4 walls. "Now," he shouted, "drop it." The birds opened their beaks, and the new roof fell into place. "How splendid! How splendid!" Mr. Bear danced in glee. Then he went ahead and made his door. His house really looked like a house now, but there were still no windows, just big openings where the windows should fit. "The house will be cold," sighed the rabbits. Mr. Bear was dismayed. "I shall have to ask the carpenter about windows," he decided. So he walked to the edge of town again, and there he saw a carpenter building another house. "Mr. Carpenter," he called. "I never met a talking bear before," began the carpenter, scratching his head. "All I want to know," said Mr. Bear, "is how to put a window into a house." The carpenter looked bewildered. Then, seeing how serious the bear was, he explained, "First we make a frame, then we putty in the glass." Mr. Bear frowned. He did not understand. "Why?" the carpenter asked. "Do you want to know?" "Because my house needs windows," answered Mr. Bear. "Your house?" More amazement showed in the carpenter's face. "Your house?" "Yes," explained Mr. Bear. "I am building a house, but I can't seem to manage the windows." "Well," said the carpenter, "if a bear can build a house, I guess I can put in the windows, and without charge." "Well then, come and see my house," Mr. Bear urged. The carpenter went with him into the forest. There he saw a little house with a thatched roof and a wooden door. He opened the door and stepped inside, onto the wooden floor. "Unbelievable!" he exclaimed. "Why, if I hadn't seen it myself, I would never have believed it." He went over and looked at the 2 spaces Mr. Bear had left for his windows. "Tomorrow morning," announced the carpenter, "I shall be here early to put in your windows." He shook Mr. Bear's paw and left. Mr. Bear was quite pleased with his kindness. The very next morning, the carpenter came and put the windows, frame and putty and glass and all. Mr. Bear thanked him warmly as he left. "Now Mr. Bear's house is finished," the birds sang. "No," Mr. Bear told them, "not yet. I have to make some furniture." And he made a bed, a table, and 4 chairs. "Now," said Mr. Bear, "I shall have a party for all of my kind friends." The birds brought berries, the squirrels nuts, the beavers sent some apples, and the rabbits came with carrots. Mr. Bear furnished the honey. He invited the kind carpenter too, and that good man brought ice cream enough for all. "Ah, happy day," sighed Mr. Bear. And that is how Fat Brown Mr. Bear came to live in his comfortable little house in the woods. The end. This was one of my children's favorite books when they were little. I'm hoping to read a lot of my children's favorite books. I'm sitting at my messy desk, and I have a few items here that I think would be a lot of fun. Just like Mr. Bear, children really don't have access to just go to a store and buy something that they need when they need it, or when they want it and want to build something. So I've decided to find a few things that everybody has in their house. And you know what these are: toilet paper roll tubes and paper towel roll tubes. Okay, now first of all, if you're collecting these around your house, it might take you a couple of days to get enough to build something out of. Actually, if you have 1 paper towel roll and 1 toilet paper tube, you can make something really nice. But if you want to collect a lot of them so that you can build something large, then it's going to take some time, and you need to ask for help from your family. First of all, you need to ask them not to put these things into the trash can, because you don't want to reach into the trash can and be getting things out of that. That's dirty and messy and germy, so don't do that. Ask for help and maybe put a special box marked toilet paper rolls or paper towel tubes somewhere in the house, and maybe as those items, if the paper towels and the toilet paper get used up, then you'll end up having a little pile to work with. But right now, I have one. So, what I've decided that I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sliding board. You need scissors, and if you're really little, get the scissors that don't have a point. Get the scissors that are safety scissors. And you want to just cut a straight line up the toilet paper tube. And then you want to go exactly opposite that. You can even fold the toilet paper tube in half so that you can make another straight line. I could see the line from where the glue was on this one. So then I folded it in half so that I have another straight line, and I'll cut it again. Okay, I only need one of these. I'm going to sort of bend it up a little bit. And I'll put the other one aside for another idea. Now, I want to take this paper towel holder, and make a cut in it that looks like this smile. Okay? Very simple. All I want to do is make a place for that other paper towel tube to sit, because you know what we're making? You're making a sliding board. Okay, at this point, I need to connect these two pieces, and I can just use some tape. Now, here's an idea about tape. You need to ask which tape you're allowed to use. Ask your parents. Don't go using up all of their tape, or you will get into trouble. But ask if you can use just a little bit of tape. And if you need to use more, maybe somebody will allow you to have one of the bigger rolls. This one's almost empty. I don't want to use this up in case somebody has to wrap a birthday present or a Christmas present. So I could use this tape, which nobody would use for a birthday present. They might use for painting. So I'm thinking maybe I might use this tape for my next project. But this project only takes 2 pieces of tape. Okay. Can you see it coming into shape? Now I'm going to take my tube and just pinch it a little bit, and I'm going to cut in some steps. 1. So I cut in a little sideways like that. And then as if I'm making a triangle, this is hard to do, I'm going to cut the triangle out so that it looks like that when I'm done. I'm going to make a couple cuts like that. Basically cutting out a couple of triangles, and that's going to make the steps to go up. And I forgot to bring a little action figure, but you can use a little action figure, a little plastic toy. I had a nice little bear upstairs because we're talking about Mr. Bear. So I think I might quick run and go get that. Sometimes when you're making things, there's a little break. So at this point, you could stop the video and go gather some supplies, like a toilet paper tube and a paper towel tube, a little bit of tape, some blunt edge scissors, and maybe even a stapler. I'll be right back. Maybe you'll be right back then too. You can pause the video. Now I'm out of breath, but here, I hope you can see it, is a sweet little bear. He's a heavy little thing, so I can pretend that he's walking up the ladder, and now he's to the top. He's sitting down, and there he goes. We'll do that again. That was fun. And now you have a sliding board for your action figures. If you have very little brothers and sisters that still put things in their mouth, kind of under 3, you don't want to have anything like this laying around, and they might crush your sliding board. So you want to keep that up high, and keep the scissors and tape up high from them too. Now, let's just say you are a little bit older, and you have a lot of toilet paper tubes. So I'm going to use this one that I already cut, and another one. Do you have any Matchbox cars? Do you have any little bouncy balls or marbles? So you can make, I'm going to staple this because I think it's going to hold better. I'm going to staple both ends. And this one. And you can make a marble race or a racing track for your play cars. Now, just because I don't like the staples, I think they can kind of hurt you. and just can cover over the seams and the staples with tape if I wanted to. So now, just out of one toilet paper tube, I have 3 feet of a marble race. And again, I don't have a marble with me. Let me look. So I can use my bear. You could probably put this on some stair steps, or you could make different shapes where they kind of bend around. You could, if you're older, you could maybe use the whole tube and keep it shut. But you can make a race for your animals, your action figures, or your cars. And that's nothing that you need to go to the store for. Maybe you can make a 3-foot one like I have, and then every time that the paper towel roll gets emptied, you get another 2 feet. And you could probably just tuck it up right to the edge of the stairs where nobody will trip on it. And you might want to put a bucket at the bottom so that your things don't go flying. But if you needed something to do today because the adults in your life are busy and they said, go find something to do, I'm busy, or go find something to do and tell me all about it, do that. And here's another thing. When you make something out of really something from the recycle bin or that could be thrown in the trash, the nice thing is you can enjoy it, and when you begin to forget about it, if it gets thrown away, that's okay. First of all, you can make it again, and second of all, maybe somebody can take a little video or take pictures of you playing with the item or making the item so that you can have that good memory. And if you do, maybe you can post it in the comments below. I really enjoyed my visit with you, my dear nieces and nephews, and great nieces and nephews, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. I'll try to make even better videos again.